Hey guys, we from Barca Football are back again this week. Last week, as some of you might have seen, we did our really cringeworthy first video. Wasn't the best one, but we learned through the process, right? So we did that. Some of you subscribed, so thank you very much. We enjoyed it because we enjoyed just talking to each other. And this week we want to continue that. I have with me Dom on the other side. Dom, how have you been? How was your week?
Hi there, how are you? I'm pretty well. It's been a hectic week, I think, but in a good way. Football is just about to restart, and Barca are in the thick of everything transfers related. So there's a lot of work for us to do, which is exciting, but also feels good to kind of be back in the hot seat, just writing, doing threads, now recording things with you. I think this is something that we actually love to do. So it's work, but at the same time, it's very fun. So it makes you appreciate it and enjoy it. So how have you been?
Busy week. I had to fly to San Fran for some work related stuff. And now we are back again. And it's great to see you. Many of you would have or may not have yet read Dom's blog. Today, I published a Twitter stat pack kind of a thread on different stat pieces that I found interesting about Oriol himself, his time at Girona, his time at Southampton, and his comparison with Busquets. Even though they're not similar, but the stats are pretty interesting. I know for a fact, Tom, you've been looking at clips, you've been scouting him, and you've been looking at just literal video analysis of his game. I wanted to pass it back to you to take your thoughts on what are the things that we can expect from him as we go into next season.
Right. Before I delve into the video, so just based on these stats that we've seen, and without really going too deep into Romeo's profile, you can see that he's no Busquets because no one is, as you said. But who he is, however, is someone who can replicate his balance and composure. I feel like this is very important when we talk about Busquets' role, not just Busquets' player. So Romeo is the antidote. I call him the antidote for the overly vertical nature that Barca have, or maybe under Xavi at least. And what the stats also tell me is that he is primarily a defensive anchor type six, which is very important. Looking at his body and his frame, he has a very developed muscular frame, long, powerful legs, and he's very tall and very strong overall. Now he's tidy, safe, and reliable in possession. He's excellent at recovering and retaining. We see that all in the stats. He's great at defending space, not necessarily tightly man marking. And he has high work rate, stamina, fitness, and he has this leadership predisposition that you will see as well, which is very, very important in this Barca team that's kind of built upon cohesion and built upon trust. And Romeo is someone who's introverted by nature, but he is a very strong personality on the pitch. We'll see that. So he's someone who's a balancer, not really an aggressor, someone who kind of tames the chaos, not produces it. It's a very, very Busquets-like profile in all those regards.
I wanted to ask
And
you one thing, Dom, after reading your blog. One of the things that you said was he's a ball winner, right?
Mhm.
How do you see that profile fitting in and what that job actually entails?
So essentially, he's a player who reads the game really well. So he looks at the pitch. You can see that through his blocked shots and interceptions. So these two metrics I usually take combined. I combine them into one metric that I call positioning, because both of those categories require the player to be at the right place at the right time to either block the shot or read the game well to intercept the pass or the shot, whatever it is. And based on those two metrics, I've come to the conclusion that Romeo reads the game really well. And that's how he can be in that position to intercept the pass and make the recovery. That's why he recovers the ball, retains the ball, because he can read the game well. I feel like this is a very, very important thing to have in this role in Barca, where he will be the one uh, of, tasked with being the last line behind. Well, not the last line, but kind of the wall that separates our defensive line from the upper side of the pitch. So we'll go through some clips. I will show you what I mean
I would
actually.
love to. I
Uh,
would love to see.
so we'll do that just now. I would like to focus on his excellent first touch, which is what he has. He's very right-footed, but he does use his left for control and readjustment, which is fine. He strikes really well through the ball, which kind of helps him with longer passes. And he can shuttle the ball out wide and at times, sometimes through the defensive block, not necessarily something that he does a lot, but he can do it. And he is surprisingly agile for his frame. So he manipulates his body really well in dueling and dribbling, which we'll see. And he has this hidden adventurous nature, which I think Barca could at some point rekindle as well. So let's just quickly go uh, and take a look at some of the. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, we can.
Good. All right. So I would like you to focus first on his passing or playmaking, let's call it that way, and then his defensive profile. So Romeo is someone who we know is much more focused on the deeper areas of the pitch. He's someone who will retain the ball and recycle the ball. So he's not very adventurous. He doesn't need to be because he's an anchor type 6 who's very positionally disciplined. And if I play this clip right here, pay attention to how he scans the pitch and how he makes decisions based on that. One scan, the ball goes there. He scans another time, and he makes a first time pass into his teammate. And very important is here, look at his body language. He is signaling for his teammate to pass the ball back and not force the play forward. I feel this is very important because he is safety above all, and he will try and recycle the ball, and he will not force progression or verticality just for the sake of having this attacking potential. Very important and very, very fitting for the role that he's going to play. Another example, very similar to this, again, scans one time, another time, third time. And now he knows, now this is a slightly vertical pass, takes him 2 touches, but why is this a safe pass? This is a safe pass because he's scanned 3 times. He knows where the opposition is, where the ball is, and where his teammates are. And he sees that his teammate, even though he's in a higher position than him, he's a safe option to progress the ball. Again, important, his teammates advance, but Romeo will stay behind as that cover. He will be the rest defense behind the attacking shape that Girona have. Very important as Barca 6, again. Now, when it comes to ball striking, again, scans one time, second time, third time, receives the ball, shuttles the ball out wide. Very simple action, very steady, very safe. Again, this is safe because he knows where the space is and he knows where the opposition are and where his teammates are at the moment. He is often what we see the first receiver ahead of the back line. Very important in his role for this Busquets type of position. He will generally be very comfortable with high volume, which is again important, and he will be comfortable with these longer types passes if the situation, if the circumstances are right for him to deploy such passes. Again, very important. I know there are some kinks in his profile that are not necessarily don't necessarily like that much. We'll talk about this a bit later. But in this sense, safety, recycling, retaining the ball, he ticks almost all the boxes. Do you have any comments on this before I move to the defensive aspect?
No, I like the scanning. What was interesting was his choices, right? In terms of the switch of play or a backward pass in that case. I like it because of 2 reasons. Because we were so spoiled growing up watching that Barca way of playing. Today, when I see the verticality, it sometimes bothers me, even though it might be necessary. Now, my question though is when you have somebody like this who is by nature like this, and sometimes when I see Xavi's principles of play, do you think that might be a challenge with Xavi forcing him to push that agenda, or do you think this is going to balance things out?
It's a very good question because one thing to consider in Romeo's profile is the Xavi's non-negotiables in the system. So what I mean by non-negotiables is the things that Xavi insists upon in every system, in every structure, in every game. And one of those things is the vertical release because Barca are very rapid, they're very vertical, as you said, and Romeo doesn't have that type of efficiency when it comes to vertical release in the past, going forward. But seeing how they do have players around him who specialize in that, either in passing or carrying, Romeo that's why I call him the perfect antidote for this, because he balances this out. He is the necessary horizontal presence for a very vertical Barca.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. Let's go quickly to his defensive profile. Now, the thing about Romeo that we have to know is, yes, he reads the game really well, but he also is much more comfortable defending the space rather than the man, which, to be honest, is something that I think might we'll see how he affects his transition to Barcelona, because Barca are very heavy man marking at the
Yeah,
moment.
at this moment, Barca has
Yeah,
become a man marking machine for whatever reason. Yeah.
exactly. He is not really a dueler. He can win duels. He does win duels, but he's not a volume dueler because he defends space and reads the game. He can stop the play before it reaches that dueling moment, which is similar to Busquets. Now here we see him actually being this rest defense. This is the attacking unit, but Romeu is outside of the attacking unit, right? And he reads the game. Let's see. He sees where the pass is going to go. This is him. He goes there. He intercepts the ball. And what does he do? Passes it horizontally. Now this, again, after recovery, his first instinct is to pass the ball horizontally or
That's
backwards,
interesting. Yeah.
because is safety above all. Now, see here, in this right moment, I will show you, when he receives the ball, he has two runners available to him. But his body, if he opens his body to the right, he can pass the ball forward. But no, he chooses to curve the body, turn around, and go backwards. And what happens next? Look at his body language. Again, calms down the play. He says, stop on the ball. Let's not push forward. Now, this is very important to know about Romeo.
That's pretty interesting, especially the point where you could have made the pass to the runners in front, which is what I think Xavi will want him to do with our
Yeah,
Dembeles and Rafinhas roaming around.
yeah,
It'll be interesting
I
to
know.
see if that fits in.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's in a very advanced position there because he's recovered the ball high. So in those situations, Xavi might instruct him to be more vertical. But I think more often than not, when Barca are all about pinning the opposition down, not rushing will be key. So I think he will be just fine. Now, in this situation, I want you to focus on how quickly he covers ground and how he runs. That's him. Again, he runs. Oh, let's just stop there. He has a big frame and he runs in big strides. He has a slightly higher center of gravity, which means that he cannot really accelerate or decelerate that quickly. But he eats up ground when
Oh
he
yeah,
gets
he
going.
can. He's like so like his stride is so long, it's
Yeah,
scary.
look, in a couple of strides, he goes essentially from there to intercepting the ball. And that's reaction time, reading the play, and then having the pace, the explosiveness to intercept it. So very important. In this final example, we see Romeo as the defender of space. So he's not, you can see that his teammates are mostly, they have assigned markers, but he is the one that defends space. Again, reads the play and focus on how he manipulates his frame here. Look, 2 steps, third step. He is very big, huge frame, muscular, heavy, tall, but he moves he's very agile. Look at this couple of steps that he makes here. 1, 2, and boom, 3. Shrugs the defender off. This is because of his big strides and the added agility. His foot placement or his step placement, the variation, he makes firm contact with the ground, which makes him kind of unmovable and unstoppable when he gets going. So I feel like this is very, very important because defending in tight situations where he has to manipulate his body will be extremely important.
Do you feel Araujo or Christensen or Kunde are defenders of space over man to man?
I think Barca as a whole, well, the back line can be very man oriented because you will often, what we will see is Barca's center backs stepping out, following the man, and then trying to stop the ball before it even reaches the player.
Yep.
And Araujo is very good at kind of sticking to his man and not enabling his marker to receive the ball smoothly or just interrupting him altogether. And I feel like that's good. It is prone to manipulation if the opposition is very good at that sort of thing. It will complement Romeo. His sense of space will give them extra security. So he will know when it's necessary for them to step up, when it's necessary for him to kind of engage and be the one who will clear the ball before they have to even leave their position. So if he can enable our defenders to not get exposed so high up because they sometimes do get exposed when they have to step out, that will be a huge, huge improvement of what we have so far. But I would expect Xavi to kind of tinker with that defensive system, because that much emphasis on heavy man marking, I don't think that's the way to go long term anyway.
All right. Okay. Do you think he's going to be an automatic starter?
I think he starts in most scenarios. Yes, I think that his profile is what we're missing, but his profile is so unique in this squad. There's no one else who replicates that profile. It's a simple profile, but it's one that only he can actually perform. It's a role that only he can perform. So I feel like he is a starter in most scenarios, unless something drastic happens.
Yeah. Well, that'll be interesting to see how that
Mm.
midfield DM combination comes up with Frankie, with Pedri, sometimes Gavi, and then how does this fit in together into the offensive part of the pitch? Anyway, we don't really play a fluid 4-3-3 anymore, to be entirely honest, under Xavi. So we have done the box, we have done a 4-4-2, we have done a 4-3-2-1. Sometimes we have played 4-3-3, and now what we're hearing is sometimes we may also play 3-4-3. For each of these formations, 4-3-3, 3-4-3, box, and 4-4-2, where do you think Oriol fits in each of these? And does his game differ for each of these formations?
Let's try and share some screens again. Right. Can you see this?
Yep.
Good. Let me see. So essentially what I like about Oriol is his simplicity means that his role doesn't really change much depending on the structure. He is who he is. He has his strengths and weaknesses. And now the only thing that Xavi has to play around with is how does he emphasize the pros or the strengths, and how does he minimize the weaknesses. If we see this is something of a standard 4-3-3, let's say, the two interiors and Oriol as the single pivot, but we know that this is only on paper. Barca really actually play like this because the left wing is a concern. We don't know if we have a real winger there or not. But in this situation, I feel like this is Barca's strongest 11. Let's say this is Barca's strongest 11 at the moment.
Mm.
So the thing is, if you have these four midfielders, Pedri, De Jong, Gundogan, and Oriol, you cannot really, Gavi doesn't really bench any of these players. So you have to have these four. And you think which one of these is the most comfortable on the left, out wide? It could be Gundogan, it could be Pedri, but I feel like Pedri has that Iniesta vibe about him, how he
Yeah.
moves. And we know that Iniesta was actually deployed out wide as well. He could perform that role. And Pedri is similar, but he wouldn't really be a wide presence anyway. In possession, what happens next is that you have this tradition. What we know what happens. Pedri would go invert into the midfield. De Jong would go down, which opens the wing for Balde, of course. Now you have the more traditional box midfield.
Yep.
So now you have De Jong and Oriol in double pivot, which is good because they complement each other very well. De Jong is the more vertical one. He will go forward and also back when necessary because he is the main progressor of this double pivot. And Oriol is the very opposite. He is very horizontal and he will go deep as the first receiver of the ball. So this is basically what I expect to happen in this setup. De Jong will be the one to progress. Oriol will be the one to retain and recycle. He can act as the first receiver of the ball from the back line. And then what he does is distributes the ball to his nearest teammates, who then make the runs, make the ball happen, make the actions happen, make the attack happen. This is his main role in the double pivot, which is good. I feel like double pivot is the way for him to kind of transition smoothly into the Barca system because he has De Jong and he has players around him who will compensate for his lack of progressiveness, lack of vertical release, and just general attacking potential. Let's put it that way. So I feel like this is a very, very simple, straightforward, but also familiar setup where he mirrors Busquets' role somewhat in the composure, balance, and just how steady he is and tidy he is in possession.
Great. I
Yes.
love it. And exactly, I think this is what we will see in most of the games, given the way Xavi likes to play. I
Mhm,
just want to bring in the concept of the high line here. So we have a high
mhm,
line. It's a second ball that's come in, and we have missed it.
mhm.
And now there's a counter. How do you think this changes his way of reading of the game?
Well, I don't think it changes it much. He is someone who is going to be a part of this rest defense. So if even if the young pushes high, you will have this quartet of players, so Oriol, Kunde, Araujo, and Christensen, who will generally be our rest defense. So our
Right.
defense in possession of the ball. Once
Correct.
the ball is lost in the final third, you have these four as the last line of defense. Let's go that way. And Oriol, if he cannot really stop the attack happening here, he does have some some semblance of recovery speed that can help us in that transition alongside Araujo. We know that he's not really as explosive or as pacey. I don't know, as tricky as some of the best wingers in the world, but he does have big strides and he can eat ground even on over longer distances. So he can make that recovery all
Yeah.
the way back. He definitely can. So in that sense, I think he is a good piece to have right here alongside the back line. Um, absolutely, yeah. So in that regard, he will be the rest defense who kind of complements the more man marking duo or trio that we have behind him, because he will at least attempt to stop the transition from happening in the first place.
Cool. I love this. Okay, so that's a 4-3-3 converting into a box. If we went with a 4-3, how do you think that plays
Mhm.
out?
Well, 3-4-3 is, I think it's kind of very similar. I just have to change the names of the players.
That's okay.
Uh, yeah, that's no worries. So it's essentially the same for them because again, you have the double pivot here. You have a double pivot that depends who plays next to him, and who your wide players are. I mean, Balde and the forward line, it could work, and it kind of puts the emphasis on Gundogan to kind of make those runs into the box and be that extra threat in attack. So I feel like in a 3-4-3, Orioles' role doesn't change much, but the personnel around him does change. So that's the only thing to consider here. But his role, him specifically, individually, I feel like wherever you put him, it doesn't change much. The only thing I would consider that would kind of change a little bit is when you have him primarily as a single pivot with wide wingers. Let's say that you have like someone like, I don't know, Fati or Ferran or I don't know who it is. So you have a proper winger here. I mean, Fati is an inverted winger. That's true, but he's a winger nonetheless, more than Pedri is, for
Yep.
example.
Yep.
Now in a single pivot, this is a problem because now with no one next to him, he kind of struggles with connecting the thirds, right? He
Correct.
doesn't have the necessary individual progressive power to do this on his own, which kind of then forces the interiors to drop,
To drop
either
back.
of them, or because this sacrifices someone like Gundogan or like, let's say this is Pedri, because it will likely be Pedri, this sacrifices their attacking potential because they have to be deeper to assist Orioles' progression. Now, one way to compensate for that is what I thought would be good is to invert Kunde. So Kunde would be here in possession, again mimicking the box. Only this time you don't sacrifice the winger for the additional midfielder because usually you have Pedri here who will be here, and you lose a winger here. Now Barca have a winger, they have their box, and they have someone who can distribute the ball, who can take the brunt of progression away from Oriol and play those vertical passes into runners or wherever.
Last year, the second game with Manchester United in the Europa. And what Ten Hag did was basically he played the long ball. And that caused us a lot of issues. So in this situation, let's say Kunde is inverted, that leaves that entire flank completely free. You put a runner on that flank and you use the
Mhm,
second ball or a long ball.
mhm.
How do we compensate?
It is difficult. It is difficult, but what this does allow you, when you invert the right back, you have a lot of compactness here. So your team is very compact, which lends itself to better counter pressing. So the goal would be to cut out those long balls at the start, not allow that to happen. So that's the main thing. That's what Pep does. That's what Arteta does, and this is something that Barca would have to do as well. But in case of emergency, there's not really much that you can do because all teams that play that counter-attacking direct style against very positional teams, they all cause trouble at some point to the positional team. Even City struggle with that. Arsenal struggle with that. All the Napoli struggle with that. Everyone struggles with that. So having Araujo here shift wide and Oriol be a bit deeper, that's the best you can do to kind of have this rest defense behind the line, or just or make sure that that offside trap is also in place. And I think that's the best you can do. I think this tackles kind of the main points that I wanted to drill in, hone in on. So this is what I feel Romeo will be like. His role is simple, so it doesn't really change as much depending on the system. So it's more or less going to be steady and very similar system to system. So which is a good thing, I feel like.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting. But there you have it. Obviously, there's a lot more detail. If you want to read Dom's blog, you can go into it and just go through the details because he's literally spent a lot of time writing that. If you want to go through the stats, I've posted about 24, 25 of them on Twitter, and we'll continue doing this, right? We are not there yet in terms of production. We're just learning. But as you can probably make it out, like it's more of me and Dom talking. And so we just have fun while doing it and we'll keep improving. This is also not the best. There will be mistakes here. There are, awkward pauses here and there. So that will continue. Yeah. But that's it for today. Look out for the stuff we are going to launch next week in terms of stories, in terms of blogs, player profiles, and any transfer news if there is anything. So that's that. Dom, anything to add before we sign up for the day?
No, I think we covered everything. I hope that people will enjoy this. We'll try and make it more concise as we go and make it more fluid, but I think it's a good start. We are enjoying ourselves, and that's important. It's content from us, the Barca fans, for the Barca fans, and if it all goes to plan, this will grow. So fingers crossed.
That's exactly my feeling, and see you on the next one. Thank you.